So, hello and welcome to the Friday show. I'm Scott Belford. The Toronto Blue Jays are on a heater. Oh, baby, taking 3 of 5 at Fenway against the Boston Red Sox. They are now 7-2 in their last 9 games. And even though this is very delusional talk, if for some wild reason they go into Target Field tonight and sweep this series against the Minnesota Twins, who are currently holding that third and final wild card spot, the Toronto Blue Jays 4.5 games back on September 1st. I don't think any of us seen this coming, and I know that it's completely delusional to even think they still have a shot, but Fangraphs on Tuesday when we did mailbag gave them a 0.1% chance. That has tripled. They are now a 0.3% chance of making the playoffs. And you know what? I know that there is barely a shot, that this is at best a dreamer's dream. But it has been good baseball to watch. These kids have been playing incredible. The bats have come alive. The bullpen somehow holding it together. Chad Green fit right in as that closer and has been doing a good job. And as if that's not enough, the starting rotation showing signs of real life, especially Bowden Francis, who has been an absolute revelation. This guy is setting records right now. He has a 0.31 whip over his last 4 starts, which, by the way, that's the lowest whip, walk, hits, innings pitched by an MLB pitcher over any 4 game span in the modern era. That's anything over 20 pitches, 20 innings pitched, by the way. These are his numbers in the last 4 games: 29 innings pitched, 2 earned runs, 6 hits, 31 Ks, 3 walks, and an ERA of 0.62. The fact that this man has appeared what feels like out of nowhere. Listen, Bowden Francis has been talked about for some time. Of course, he was kind of the throw-in the Rowdy Tellez trade a few years back when the Jays got Trevor Richards. Trevor Richards was, of course, traded to the Minnesota Twins at the deadline. The Twins have released him. So the Blue Jays with Bowden Francis, he was kind of that fringe prospect throughout the last few years. We've seen him in that long man position. The kid adds a splitter and becomes one of the most dominant pitchers in baseball. I can't believe how much he's throwing a pitch that he has just added into his arsenal. It is wild, and how well he is throwing it. The guy is eye-opening right now. Fingers crossed that he has done enough to earn himself some rope going into 2025. He looks like an ace. That's wood we're knocking on, by the way. So this is the walk-off. I'm Scott Belford. We are doing something special today. I was able to sit down with Hagen. He's on the 40-man roster for the Toronto Blue Jays, made his major league debut last season in August. Some of you might remember it was a little bit heartbreaking. He got through one batter. You could tell 3 pitches in that something was wrong. He wound up tearing his oblique. It was a season-ending injury, and so his major league debut wound up being cut short. He got through one batter that he wound up walking, even though he was up 0-2. But third pitch in, he felt something, a tear in his leg, and just wound up throwing 4 balls after that. And from there, IL stint. Was so happy to have Hagee back on the show. And the fact that he's healthy and looking as good as he is, I think it is very likely come September when the rosters expand and they need 2 more guys up, that he is one of those 2. It makes all the sense in the world, especially considering this is a guy who hits triple digits and could be a real boost to the bullpen. So without further ado, enjoy the Friday show and our chat with Hagen. Cheers, gang. Hello and welcome to the walk-off, everybody. I'm Scott Belford, and I'm very excited to be joined by today's guest. Pleased to be welcoming back to the show, pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays organization, currently donning that Buffalo Bison's AAA jersey, Hagen Danner. Welcome back to the walk-off, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great seeing you last week at Salem Field. It was really nice to catch up, and congrats again on being healthy, being back on the field. You're pitching well, you're getting saves. Good to see, man.
Yeah, thank you.
So we'll dive right in here. I know it's kind of been a long and arduous road to haul since last year around this time. How's the body? How's the mind? How are you feeling on the mound these days?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. I mean, this season has been another kind of rocky one. It's putting up some decent numbers, and
Mm-hmm.
but just the health is always kind of been my battle. And which also brings in the mental health too, is always
Yeah.
kind of a battle going through rehab, and just hoping that you're going to be back on the field. And when you do make it back on the field, then it's like, all right, now I got to keep myself healthy to keep going. And so it's just constantly a battle. But it's I try to, like I told you in Buffalo, it's just every day I just think of the day and what I have that day and try not to think of anything ahead of that. So
Well, it's funny you say that because that was one of the things that honestly, dude, stood out to me about our conversation in Buffalo. And I think the quote, I've got it here. It's been a grind, but that's the name of the game. It's a grind. I've been on the grind before and will continue to do so. And it's funny because it sounds like such a standard answer, but honestly, man, there was just like this genuineness to it that really stood out to me. More like it's a lesson that you kind of had to learn than anything else, right? Just kind of that mental toughness side of things, just the acceptance that it's not going to be easy. You're going to need to battle. Was there a moment where this was kind of an epiphany, or was this more just you had to learn a little over and over and over again?
yeah, I mean, I would say I'm still learning.
Yeah.
I'm how to deal with it. So, but I mean, I would say back even when I was a hitter, it was every day was, I mean, failure, failure, failure after every single at bat. It kept going, and from then on, it was kind of, I learned that this game is so hard that I'm just blessed to even be able to play it. It's like a getting to pitch now, and I mean, things I thought would be easier on my body, and obviously it's not exactly easier on your body. But yeah, just staying in the present, which is what everybody kind of preaches, but it's like it's really real. It
Hmm.
really is. I start thinking about, oh, I want to be in the big leagues. I want to do this again. I hope I can make it back up. It's like all that stuff is just noise, man. It makes you. I just want to have fun. That's kind of what I'm here for. I love my teammates. I love always meeting new friends and stuff. And if I'm thinking about that stuff, it's not going to be a fun year for me.
Well, it's kind of interesting how those, and it's so easy to just be like, oh God, this is so overplayed, right? But the old adages of like, if it was easy, everyone would do it, right? And I know that that is one thing, like as a stand-up comic, that I need to learn over and over and over again because you have those moments, and I'm sure you can attest to the same thing, where you actually start to fool yourself a little, right? Where you're like, maybe I've figured it out. Maybe we're
Yeah,
on the easy road now. Yeah. And then humility, there's something about the humbleness of
oh,
pursuing these endeavors.
yes, that is. I mean, people talk about it all the time. Once you feel like you've accomplished something, the game of baseball will hit you right in the face if
Yeah.
you can do get too ahead of yourself. So
Can you tell
that
us a little bit? Can you tell us a little bit, Haggy, about what the rehab experience looks like? I mean, you're about as a seasoned veteran with it, unfortunately, as anyone. From kind of the moment they tell you or that you feel something going on to being diagnosed to what happens from there.
yeah, and it's first thing is like it's almost sad that this is a thing, but it's like you feel something, and you've learned through the years that you don't want to say anything, because then it's, I mean, the trainers have a job too. It's their job, and they don't want to lose their job, so they got to be able to voice stuff to the higher ups. And it's sad that that's become kind of a thing, and every player will talk about it. Staff hates that that's a thing, but it really is. But yeah, I mean, you once like you really feel off, and it's affecting your game, is kind of when, I if something like that goes on with me, it's like, okay, if it's that bad where it's affecting my game, then I will either go a week or two and just keep going through it. And all of a sudden, it's kind of like, all
I
right.
love that you're still like, I still try and play through it. Yeah.
I mean, your body never feels 100% anyways. So it's kind of you just kind of, I try to read my body, read my mind, and see what's going on. And, it's a battle. But yeah, the rehab process is, once you get diagnosed with whatever you have, usually you just go down to Florida, go to the beautiful complex that we have.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a bad place to rehab. It really isn't. But yeah, you go down there, go in every single morning. You have Sundays off usually, and it's very repetitive. Everything you do is kind of an everyday thing.
I'm
So
guessing there's other guys down there doing the same thing. Like, is there a little bit of a camaraderie between everyone in rehab?
yeah. I mean, I've gotten a lot of the guys I've gotten closest with are unfortunately in rehab. You're there every single day and you are just grinding away. You respect everyone, you care for everybody. They're going through hard stuff too. So I mean, everyone's like the word grinding. That is the definition of grinding.
So you're still hitting 97, 98. Your fastball is what allowed you to kind of transfer from catcher to pitcher, really. Tell us about your repertoire and what you're working with right now for everyone who hasn't been able to see you pitch down in Buffalo and keep up with what you've been doing.
Yeah, I'm throwing the fastball. I've learned that any hitter can hit any fastball. So no matter if you throw 105, I mean, you might be able to get away with more stuff. But I've started throwing my slider a lot more. It's kind of fastball slider. I'll flip in a curveball every now and then, but not too often. It's kind of
How are you feeling about your slider these days?
yeah, it's all after rehab. It's always, when I'm building up, it's always a little bit off, just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is, but it's been like that almost every time I've gotten hurt. It's good. I love it. It's my favorite pitch that I have.
Yeah.
But it's not as hard as it was before I got hurt. Right now it's about
So you're almost
85.
physically building back up, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's constant, and I feel it every day. I feel it every day. It's a battle, but yeah, I would say it's right now it's about 85 to 88. And when it's at my best, it's around 88 to 90. So it's kind of like, when it's harder, it's better. When
Yeah.
it's a little, and it could be 2 miles an hour, and for some reason that little bit slower, the hitters can see it, I think, a little bit more, and it gives them time. So, but I
So,
mean, I'm getting away with it a little bit right now. So
and I mean, it's funny how much pitching is getting away with stuff sometimes, right? Like, it's so funny how I like the amount of guys I've watched that are just dialed in and dealing and wind up getting hit, then like give up a walk, and then it's just like all of a sudden, like it's a
oh,
slippery slope, right? And then sometimes you see guys and they're not sharp at all, and somehow they're just like dodging bullets.
yes, that's the name of the game.
Yeah, it's the name of the game. So I know we talked about this a little bit, and I don't want to like put salt in the wound because I'm well aware of what it was all like. But major league debut last year,
Yep.
such a bittersweet moment for you because obviously that's the accumulation of all your hard work kind of coming to fruition there. And then at the same time, you wound up with a season ending oblique injury back on the IL. You managed, I think it was 7 pitches in that outing. Not really the major league debut you obviously had envisioned.
Yep.
You went through so many emotions in that day that I think most people wouldn't even feel in one day, right? Like in that few hour span, you went through so much. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what that was like? I know you kind of said that it felt like it didn't even happen when we were talking.
Yeah. So I guess I could start from the morning. Like
Yeah.
I,
Tell us about
I
finding out you were getting called up.
yeah. So I mean, it's funny. I was talking to someone, and kind of like, I was like, all right, like getting towards the end of the season, I didn't really even think. I mean, I forgot. I didn't even know that I was throwing that well. Like I had no idea. I didn't know I went like 15 scoreless. I really had no idea. and I was talking to somebody, and I was like, yeah,
Not to
man, like
interrupt, not to interrupt. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, how often are you following your numbers? Do you pay attention to them all that much?
no,
Or only when it's going bad?
I I've learned that since hitting, it's I'm a big hitting was. I mean, you see your big fat face on the scoreboard with your average and everything underneath, and you're just like, oh man, I got to look at that every day. Uh, but as a pitcher, I I don't know. I just have never really the. I feel like a couple times I've looked, every single time my next outing I'll give up a run or something. It's like there's always something to it, and I really don't care. I don't care about that stuff. I mean, if I'm throwing really bad, then it's like, all right, like my numbers are probably pretty bad. Like we'll take a look at those, but see why they're bad. Like
Hmm.
what's I yeah, I the more I look, the worse everything gets. And I feel like it's if you're throwing well, you don't have to look. You don't
I'm
have to
guessing
always
this is something that, like, this mentality is something that is developed over time. You haven't always been like that, I'm guessing.
no, it's maturity, honestly.
Yeah.
It grew on me, and I definitely wasn't like that. I grew up, I mean, I would even when I was my first couple of years, it'd be like I'd check my name on Twitter. I'd see stuff like that. And it was like now it's I don't need to, especially now. I mean
Yeah.
I don't know a bunch of positive stuff always on Twitter of me anymore, but but
Yeah, no
yeah,
one's going to Twitter for an uplifting feeling, that's for sure.
yeah, exactly. So I stay away from all that. But yeah, the stats I feel like if you need to check your stats, you have doubts about your stuff.
Mhm,
There's some doubts going on. I'm not a big stat checker. So
mhm. So 15 innings, you didn't even know how well you were doing from
yeah.
there.
And so yeah, 15 innings. I talking to somebody about just kind of like I was like, man, I can't wait for next spring training. Like I feel like I'm in such a good place, you know. And 3 minutes after that, I get a call. Our coach comes in and calls me into the office, and that's when I get called up. And I'm like, I can't believe that was like the conversation I was having was like almost like in doubts of like I didn't really care if I was getting called up. It was like, all right, like next year is going to be the year.
Yeah.
And then it happened, and the funniest part of that was the only trip I had ever been on that I didn't bring my passport.
And of course, this is the thing too, if people don't know, like your debut was in Toronto.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And you clearly have to have a passport to get to
Yeah.
Toronto. And yeah, and I called up our travel coordinator and was like, hey man, bad news, I don't have my passport. And he's like, oh well, let's get you to Buffalo. And I was like, okay. So I went on. He sent me to Boston. I had a flight out of Boston at 5 a.m.
Oh my God.
And yeah, so I mean, you can imagine. I woke up at 3 o'clock to get to the airport. I probably went to sleep at about 1:30, trying to just like I don't know, trying to coordinate everything. People had to come see me, and then I get to Buffalo, grab my passport, drive up to Toronto, and from there I was like, well, I feel ready to go. I
Yeah.
feel this is exciting. This is awesome. So
Just
nervous. So
riding adrenaline, eh?
oh my gosh. And the drive up, I got to call everybody, which was cool. I mean, it was right when I saw the CN Tower. I was like, whoa, all right, this is real. Here we go.
Yeah.
And then yeah, I mean, walked into the clubhouse and saw a couple buddies, and I mean, it was definitely a lot of emotions going on there that
Yeah.
hard to explain. Like I feel like people that have made their debuts all kind of have had that feeling of just like
Mhm.
you don't know what's going on. You have your meeting with the coaches. You're just like what the heck? What is going on right now?
Did you
And yeah,
did you have any family that was able to get down for that?
yeah. I mean, basically, I mean, my parents.
Yeah.
We got a fire alarm. Can
Well,
you hear
if
that?
I can't, but if you
Oh,
gotta
perfect.
go, you gotta go.
Anything serious?
You're like, let it burn.
Yeah, yeah. One sec.
Your attention, please. There has been a fire alarm reported in the building. Please proceed to the nearest exit and evacuate the building.
Did you hear that?
Yeah. If you gotta evacuate, go ahead, buddy.
One sec. Let me look outside this.
Yeah. Yeah. Double check that the building's not burning down around you.
I mean, I don't see anybody rushing out of the door, you know.
Please. May I have your attention?
But you know, we'll stay here for a little bit.
All right.
Please.
So
Yeah.
that's actually great news though, that your parents managed to get down there and stuff, you know, like that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it was my parents, my brother, his wife, my sister, his husband or her husband, and then my fiance got down there,
Yeah.
and then one of my better friends.
Amazing.
May I have your attention, please? There has been a fire alarm reported in the building.
This
This
is
is
crazy.
hilarious, actually. This is, if it's gonna keep doing that, buddy, you can do what you got to do, and we can just reconvene in a few minutes here when you're ready.
I mean, I feel like it is just gonna keep doing this.
Okay. All right. We'll just pause it here and
Pause it. Yeah. I mean, I should be back in like 5 minutes probably.
okay, sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Go ahead and leave the chat. I'll just leave
Okay.
her running and I'll wait for you.
Okay. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Of course, man. Thank you. All right.
Back.
It didn't burn down. We're good.
Wow.
All right, man. Yeah, we'll just jump right back in here. Your family made it down to Toronto. The
Yeah.
passport fiasco was taken care of. You're in Toronto. I'm guessing, I mean, that's the thing with being a reliever. Even though they called you up, you literally had no idea when you're actually going to make your actual debut, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I had zero clue. And I would say they told me in my meeting that it was like they're like, hey, we're probably gonna not try to. We'll see if we'll get you in the game today. If it's the right opportunity, then we'll get you in the game. And you know, I'm like, just get me in the game. Like
Yeah.
I want to get this first one over with. And yeah, but my family bought. I think they were there for. We had a week-long homestand, anyways, in
Yeah.
Toronto. I think they had tickets anyways for the whole week for hotels and whatnot. So I knew I'd be able to throw in front of them eventually.
Yeah.
I mean, and it was the perfect opportunity to throw. It was like we were down by 4 runs. It was kind of just like a get my feet wet moment. And yeah, I mean, I look back at it, I'm like, wow, maybe I really did want to get that one under my belt, but like I could have
Not
taken my
like
time.
this. Yeah.
Yeah, I could take time a little bit on it, but yeah.
Were you feeling anything before this happened? I know oblique is just it's tough to predict, and obviously were you feeling tightness or anything like that, or this came out of nowhere?
Yeah, zero feeling.
Oh.
I had never felt my oblique ever in my entire life. The only things I had ever felt, I had back, I've had lat, I've had things like that. It was my oblique, and I had no idea. It happened on the 3rd pitch, and it was the first pitch to Jan Gomes, and I like threw the slider, and I was like, oh, like it knocked the wind out of me a little bit. I was like, what was that? And then, but I like looked around for a second. I was like, there's just no possible way that this is happening right now. Not right here. And I was like sitting there. I threw another pitch, and the velo was good. It was a slider again. I had him 0-2, and I was like, all right, like this feels horrible, but like if I can get my first strikeout right now, like let's do it. Let's get this first strikeout. And I was throwing, and I couldn't even get over my front side. I remember missing up with the fastball, and I was like, oh, here we go. This is not going to be good. And I remember
you knew right there then, eh?
Something was, yeah, just didn't know if it was my wrist popped out. I had no idea what was going on. It was just like a knife, like someone was stabbing me in my side. And yeah, never had an oblique before in my entire life. So I had no idea what it was.
And then you threw 2 more pitches after that.
Yeah, I went after I felt like the tear, I was on pitch 3. So 4 more pitches after that. Yeah. And
Ooh.
I know. But I had him 0-2. I was like, man, I got him 0-2. Like, let's try to get.
Let me get that first strikeout.
Yeah. So obviously, but
so from that moment, the trainer comes out. You get removed. You find that out, And just like that, it's done.
Yeah. You know, I went into the training room. I remember all the emotions. I remember walking off the field, and just, it was like the camera was all in my face. It was like one of those emotions where I would try to look up and find my family for like some comfort almost.
Mhm.
I had no idea where they were sitting. I mean, it was a full house. It was 50 grand people. I mean, I was
Yeah.
just like trying to look for him. I was like, oh man, like I can't see anything right now. Head down, looking, see the camera in front of him. It's like, oh man, this is just like, this is not ideal. But I remember walking in and I just like tossed my glove on the ground. And I remember like saying in my head, because the only thing I could think about was just like, God, I can't catch a break. Like that, just like help me out. This is something like everything that's always gone, and it just, a lot of things haven't lined up, you know, and I'm like, and this one too. This is now like the biggest moment of my life, and this is what happens. Yeah, but I walked in there and I didn't know. I mean, I saw the doctor immediately right away, and he did like one test with me, and it was like told me to cough or something, and
Yeah.
I couldn't cough. It was like I coughed, and it was like, oh, and then
And
knocked
he's
went out.
like, okay.
Yeah, and then we kind of figured it out. We knew, and then we didn't know how bad until I got an MRI.
That's the thing too, is like when you were called up, the Jays were in the middle of a pennant race.
Yeah, it was exciting. It was
Yeah,
crazy.
man.
Yeah, fans were coming out. I mean, like I said, we had a packed house for Jose Bautista night.
Right.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, is this what it's like to be a Blue Jay? This is insane. And yeah,
Well, I mean, it is what it is, and I mean,
yeah,
this is like what you were talking about with the grind and the battle. And if it was easy, everyone would be doing it. And I mean, you're still on that 40-man roster, and it's gonna come, buddy. You know, it's
yeah,
gonna come. I know you
yeah.
know that, but
It's a blessing to, you know, every day to know that the Jays still have, you know, their thoughts of me, and then still positive thoughts, and have me on that roster still available to be called up always.
mhm.
And it's just like, yeah, go through every day and keep throwing the ball well, and hopefully at one point it happens. I mean, if I'm throwing the ball well and it doesn't happen, I did my job. You know, I'm
Yeah.
doing exactly what I want to do. So
So one thing we chatted about on the field in Salem, in Buffalo on Salem Field, I probably should have asked you if it was cool we brought this up beforehand. I can cut it if it's not something you wanted to talk about, but I know that you took an interesting approach this season in that you decided for the baseball season you're not drinking. Um to help with your anxiety. How has that gone? Have you noticed a big improvement? And I know that there's a lot of guys out there who deal with anxiety, whether it athletes or not, right? It's not an uncommon feeling.
yeah,
How has that improved your life? Because I know you were saying it actually made a difference.
yeah, it's made a huge difference. I used to have a drink or two after a game, and it was like I was doing that, felt like I was doing that for my anxiety. Like I
Right.
was like, oh, calm down. Let me just, just be loose so I can just go to bed and not think. And I realized going into this year, I was like, it's kind of like counterproductive. I drinks and I wake up in the morning and I am not feeling great, and now I'm hungover or something. And that's like, now if it's like an off day, and now I wasted my off day. It's like
Yeah.
I feel like I never had a chance to regenerate, recoup. And I mean, I don't know if you ever feel like I don't know if you drink or not, but when you're hungover or have any drinks, it's like your anxiety is just extreme. Don't want
Yes.
to get out, don't want to do anything. And that's kind of where I learned that. I mean, I obviously still have anxiety no matter what it is.
Hmm.
It's kind. I started journaling. I'm reading a book now. This is my first book in about 7 years that I've read. I just,
Amazing.
out of high school, I just didn't really read. I was like, oh, just baseball. Let me just play baseball.
Yeah.
And I'm now on the reading train, journaling. I'm doing anything I can do that is, just takes my mind into a better state. You know, I feel like I've grown up a lot, and I used to just try to say 3 years ago, I would just try to like do whatever I could, play video games, do anything that just like allows me to not think about it.
Yes.
And within the last year, I've kind of just taken it head on, you know, and it's made it a lot easier on me.
Well, we
It's like
talked
every
about the maturity side of things, right? Like, it is
yeah,
funny how when it comes to stuff on the mental side, like anxiety, like depression, ignoring it, it's the easy way to go about it to start with, but it does eventually catch up with you, right? And like we were
right,
talking about what a huge part the mental side of the game is. And if you're not mentally functioning at your peak, I'm sure it's detrimental to the baseball side of things too.
100%. It's a I mean, trust me, I've had my days of like I go out there and it's like I'm having anxiety, and next thing I know, I'm walking off the mound, and like whether I had a good outing or a bad outing, I'm like, wow, like I just got through that. Okay, like
Yeah.
it's like I am on cruise control going through it, and that's what I hate. That one in the off season, I really took part of like if I'm going to be playing baseball, I might as well enjoy every single minute that I get to play baseball. So being on autopilot, cruise control, just trying to like get through the days that I was so over that felt like I was just wasting time in my life. So
Man, it is funny how much I relate to everything you're saying right now, even though I know we're in very different industries. Like people maybe don't understand that there is, even though you do it a million times, and it obviously gets easier every time you take the mound, every time you get on stage, right? Like the nerves of it tends to go away, but it doesn't. Like that's the thing, right? Is I've been on stage literally over 2,500 times. And
yep,
would I describe the feeling I get before going on as nerves? Not really. But it is, and my brain is still like my wife. I drive her crazy because about an hour and a half before I go on stage, she can talk to me the whole time, retaining nothing in one ear, out the other. I'm just in my own world, right?
yep. That is the it's funny that my fiance will be talking to me, and if I'm going through like any anxiety or anything, she'll like she'll pause and she'll wait for me to respond. And if I don't respond within like 10-15 seconds, she's like, okay, I know what's going on. We're all right. We're gonna be all right.
Yeah,
I'm like, man, yeah, sometimes as males, you grow up and you never, it was like it was almost like a thing where you felt like you're gonna be made fun of if you're
yeah,
having
absolutely.
want to ever talk about it. And now it's cool. I've seen it a lot now where it's getting more talked about.
Mhm.
I saw that MLB implemented like an anxiety IL. I saw that, and like
Crazy.
some people really struggle, and if you're out there and you're struggling that hard, it's like, yeah, I mean, you might need a tiny little break, you know, and some if a team accepts that, I mean, that's pretty big on the team to do that. But yeah, I mean, there's teammates that I talk to guys all the time, and they struggle, and it's like, you know, you really realize how I would say normal it is to just everybody's
Truly,
kind of yeah, and it's like
truly.
negative thoughts so normal. You have them all the time. It's just whether or not you can, instead of just, I mean, I've learned from this book I'm reading, it's like negative thoughts are always coming and going. You know, you have them, but the more that I try to like replace them with positive thoughts, it doesn't work for me. It's more like that's what everyone tries to say to do.
Yeah.
I'm more, you got to acknowledge these negative thoughts that are coming to your mind. And once you acknowledge them, I feel like they at ease, they kind of just like slow down. They kind of fall off the hill, and you're more inclined to just not let the negative thoughts really just constantly going in your mind.
And that kind of what separates like, amateurs or people who are doing it for fun to the professionals. It's like there is something to be said for performing in front of people, right? Like it's not like you're just getting on that mound and it's like, okay, one guy's there. It's just the batter. You just got to worry about that, right? Like there's a little bit more to it than that. And I love too that your partner gets it, right? Like your fiance gets it because you need that support system when you're pursuing something like that. And I know we talked about how your career has progressed and stuff, but life obviously doesn't stop either. I know you're getting married in November. Congratulations on that, by the way. Very cool.
Thank you.
How long have you been with your girl now?
It's been 5.5 years.
So she gets the ins and
Oh,
outs.
yeah. I mean, we get each other. She knows what's going on. I mean, I call her after every game. It's gotten to a point I tell her everything, everything I'm thinking about, stuff like that. And it's more of like we get each other. If she's having, mental issues or anything going on, she knows that she can always talk to me. And
Yeah.
that's kind of, and I try to implement that to my friends too. It's like guys, like I have gone through a lot and I don't ever talk to people. I haven't really talked to you guys about all this, but like, just know if you ever need to talk to someone, I understand what you're going through. Stuff like it's not easy. I have little tactics, or if you just want to talk and have fun, I'm the
Yeah.
easiest laugh. People call me an easy laugh, and I feel like it's good. It's good to be an easy laugh.
It is, and to be aware of it too is so huge. Honestly, Haggy, thank you so much for kind of delving into that. I know lots of people. We have lots of young ball players listening to the show all the time who reach out and stuff. And this is it. I just like when it's something that's so prevalent to hear from people like you that yeah, like everyone's kind of dealing with it. There are ways to go about handling it other than
Just
drinking or
yeah,
whatever it is. Yeah.
just trust me. The drinking is not. If anyone's listening right now, drinking is not the. It might feel really good for those few hours that you're out there with
Mm-hmm.
your boy. I would never take back any times I had gone out with my teammates, and boy, like that is the best times of my life. Those
Yeah.
are the friends I remember forever. But it's just those times where you take it a little bit too far, you're doing it too often. It's just for the next couple of days. It's you wonder why your anxiety is kind of going downhill, and I had to look at that in the face. I was like,
And
wow, okay.
I mean, I kind of went through a similar thing where like I still drink, but I am very conscious of what it does to me, which is like, and when you're on the road, it's easy to do too, like I'll be on
Uh,
tour with an opener or something that you really enjoy. And like the first couple nights you're having beers. And by like the third night, I'm like, why am I like feeling like I'm panicking? And it's like, oh yeah, I'm kind of doing this to myself a little bit, right? All right, let's get into a little bit lighter stuff here before we let you go. How does the Bison's bullpen kill time? Are you guys card players? Do you have a game or anything you guys do? What does time killing look like in the Bison's bullpen?
I would say while we're in the bullpen, it's more of like I mean, we're all like best friends out there.
Yeah,
It's like you have so many different people. You got Jose Quas, you got Mason Fluharty, and
yeah,
it's like a 22-year-old and a guy that's been through so much in his career. And it's so yeah, and then you go in between all these guys, and it's just like so many stories you can talk about. I mean, it's
yeah.
never ending. But people are talking constantly. But I would say, yeah, in the clubhouse, it's always whether or not it's a bullpen guy. I mean, it's mostly a card games.
Right.
I apparently when I was gone for the 2 months, people weren't playing card games, and I came back and I was like, "Hey, where are the cards?" And no
You're
one
the
was playing.
card guy.
I had cards and put them on the table. I was like, "Who's playing cards in there? Someone needs to play."
Love it. So you are, like we said, still on the 40-man roster currently. September call-ups right around the corner. Uh, Obviously, you can't sit around and wait for the call up. You can't control or worry about things you can't control. Is that a little bit of the grind you're talking about? Knowing that you're close to the verge, but also like staying in the now is important if you're going to continue to develop and put up numbers.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that is the grind. That's you got people left, right, all over the place trying to tell you, "Oh man, when are you going to get called up? When are you like, like it's constant. It's
Yeah.
constant going around, and it's to me, it's I either don't respond, which people have got now, like
Yeah.
they know hey, you don't want to talk about that, or it's like I don't know, I
Yeah.
always feel that it's
Because
the
you
right.
don't know. Like that's the thing. You
You
don't know.
really have no idea. There's guys and people talk about the September call ups. You get 2 extra roster spots up there. It's like okay, but but how are they going to use these roster spots? You never know.
Yeah.
You never, your idea. I mean, my guess is there's a couple hitters that have their opportunity to get to go up, and there's going to be a couple pitchers, whether it's a long guy or there's a couple guys that are in there that like could be the ones called up. And I mean, it's whether the Blue Jays want a short guy, a long guy, whether they want to give a guy an opportunity. I mean, you just never know, because I mean, we're not in the playoff running right now up there. So it's kind of, no one knows. And they try to, I mean, that's the conversations that people go in, and I usually walk away. I try to like not care, but it's like, oh, I wonder who's going to get called up. And it's like, all right, once I hear anything about getting called up, I tend to just like,
I've got a book to read, guys. So.
Joke. In the bullpen every now and then there'll be like, oh, I wonder how the big league team's doing, and I'm always like, hey man, what about us? What about the Bisons?
Yeah.
What do we got? You winning?
Yeah. I love that. I love that. So before we get to listener questions here, I got one last one for you. I'm curious, because one thing that really kind of blew me away about the Bisons this year and being around you guys a little more was how well everyone communicates with each other, right? I know there's a lot of Latin American players, and I was watching Luis De Los Santos come up, and he was goofing around with Riley Terada, and Terada started speaking some Spanish to him. And I afterwards was talking to Riley, and I'm like, I didn't know you speak Spanish. And he's like, oh, I don't. I'm like, you just did. So I'm curious, do you speak a little Spanish? And what is that like? It's almost like baseball has its own language, even if there is a little bit of a language barrier.
Yeah. I mean, I would call it Spanglish.
Spanglish. There you go.
Yeah. I mean, as a catcher, I used to know, I tried to really take it to heart to like learn Spanish so I can go and talk to the pitchers. And I mean, I guess as a pitcher, I've lost that a little bit. I don't know why. It's kind of maybe it's the higher ranks you get. A lot of the Spanish speaking guys know a little more English, and so you're able to actually talk to them in English, which is, to me, I mean, I get it. They came to the United States, like the Latin guys. I mean, Japanese guys, everyone that speaks different languages, but I still feel like we should have, us Americans that only speak English, we really should learn
have a little.
And I feel like whether it's in the real world, I mean, I'm from California. There's a lot of Spanish speaking people in California, and I should probably know more Spanish,
Well, it's so funny to me too, because a lot of them are self-conscious about it. I know I was talking with Luis De Los Santos, and he brought in Rafael Antigua to translate for him. And then after the interview, I was talking with Luis, and his English was so good, and I was like, man, your English is really good. I don't know why you're like worried about it. And he was like, next time I'll do English, but I just worry about it. And it's just really interesting to see how much they are concerned about it, right?
I mean, there'll be times where we have pitchers meetings, or we call them AGRs, and we talk about our outings the next day. And I've noticed that some guys will have, every now and then, it's someone that will want to translate, and it's like, it's great, and I love that, but I almost feel bad. Some guys know some English, you'll hear it come out, and it's like, but they just don't want to be made fun of. And it's become a thing. Guys, I mean, going, you're with a lot of young guys. They tend to laugh. They laugh and make fun. And like, it's just, I love when the Spanish speaking guys at least attempt English. It's the best. Like when they get it right and we understand what they're saying, they get all excited. They're like, oh my gosh, like I said it right, And like, Luis is the best. J-Lo he's the best, and he knows good English. And he's been with me. Let's see, we've been on the same team, I think, every single year of our minor league career.
Wow, that's wild.
From the GCL, from 2017 GCL, we were on the same team. Bluefield in 2018, 2019, he came up to Lansing at the end of the year. Yeah, I mean, it's been like,
you guys played together on teams that don't even exist anymore.
He is the best.
All right, Haggy. Honestly, dude, I always love chatting baseball with you, man. You're one of my faves to have on the show here. Really appreciate your time. I've got a few listener questions. You got a few more minutes here?
course.
Okay, so this one's from Mish in our Discord. She says, "Hey Haggy, what does your winter off season look like? How much throwing do you do, or do you just shut yourself down for a bit?"
Yeah, I don't. I tried to not. It's funny. I've been in rehab a lot of the times, like towards the end of the year, which it makes me. I'm like built up for off season, so I really just don't. I haven't really stopped this year. I'll take a week or so off just to like mental break. And I mean, I got a lot of stuff going on this off season, so I'm probably just not going to stop. I'm probably just going to keep going and no, I mean, keep it light,
Yeah.
throw. I work out at Equinox. I'm big on doing things on my own. And if I need help, I will be able to contact the Blue Jays always and go through stuff. But it's more like it's my time. It's funny. I'm not getting paid in the off season,
Yeah.
and so I like to do stuff on my own. This is like my time to get myself better, So
Has it always been like that for you, or is this something that has developed because of injury and stuff like that, where you're kind of just got used to being on your own?
yeah, no, it's kind of always been like that.
Yeah.
I do, you know, my thought about like lifting and all that is a lot different than some of the trainers' thoughts and some of the strength trainers. And I'm not big on it. I'll lift decently heavy in the off season, maybe 2 times a week. And then the other days I'm doing more like yoga, stuff like that to just keep the body moving and stay loose. If I was a catcher still, I'd probably be lifting big, try to get
Yeah.
big. But I don't see the benefits in it. It's kind of, it makes me feel tight when I lift and all that. So yeah, I mean, I've always learned that I tend to butt heads, and I don't want to ever tell a strength coach, hey, your stuff is wrong. So I've learned to just kind of go on my own and just,
Yeah.
if they want to say something with it, and I love it. I love when they come in, chime in, and hey, have you ever thought about doing this, that? And to me, that stuff is fun where you make conversation.
All right. The last question is from Jason. He messaged us on Twitter. He says, "Haggy, so glad you're back and healthy. Curious who you're hanging out with these days in Buffalo. Who's your crew? And when you eventually get the call up to Toronto, who are you excited to see?"
Yeah, in Buffalo, it's funny. My roommate just walked in my room or walked into the hotel room. Paxton Schultz, he's
Nice.
a great guy. We've gotten really close. When he
Yeah.
came to the Blue Jays on, we became throwing partners right away, and now we're still throwing partners to this day. So
Love that.
uh, I would say, I mean, it's funny. The whole team we're all pretty close. A lot of new faces though. When I got here after rehab, a lot of new faces. Alan Roden, Riley. Phil Clark is one of my best friends. He's
So,
the best.
Haggy, I calculated up, was in the Bison's press box, and all of the reporters started trying to calculate who had worn both a Bison's jersey and a Blue Jays jersey in 2024. And we calculated 19 guys. I don't know if that's the official number. We might have missed somebody, but that's a lot, right? Like, so are you pretty
Yeah,
tight with everyone? Like, because I can imagine with all these new guys, that's the thing with a bunch of call ups to the big leagues. You're getting a bunch of call ups from AA to AAA. Everyone's still pretty tight though.
yeah. I mean, we're tight. I mean, the team we're struggling a little bit just as a team in general, playing wise. But I mean, that almost makes you get a little tighter with guys.
Yeah.
Everyone goes through their struggles, like I've said, and you're I don't know, you tend to lean on guys, and those are the guys that become your better friends. And then yeah, your question with the big league guys, it's like, I mean, I've gotten close with a lot of guys. I look up to like Romano, a guy like Jordan
Yeah.
Romano is kind of I've always looked up to. Eric Swanson,
Yeah.
it's guys, and those guys haven't had their so say best years. It's more like, even if you're in the big leagues, even though you're making good money, you still have more stuff to work on, and you're going to go through struggles. So that was cool. When Eric Swanson came down here to AAA, he completely treated it like he was a AAA player. He's like, I wasn't good, and this is where I'm going to get better. And now you look at him, he's back up there, and I'm pretty sure he's doing a lot better up there.
He's been
So
actually really good. Yeah.
yeah. And then it would be like Ernie Clement,
Yeah.
Bo. Bo and I, we've like during rehab just now, we get a little close. David Schneider,
Yeah.
Bar, all those guys. It's a fun team. AAA and the big leagues, they're all. It's a real fun organization to be in right now.
Haggy, thank you so much for taking the time to join us, brother. Honestly, man, like I said, always love chatting baseball with you. We're rooting for you. Can't wait until you get your way back to Toronto. I know it's going to happen, and all the best with the rest of the season, man.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you guys.